Yeah, so welcome to this live streaming session. This is the first ever Filecoin Grants live streaming session. We're very happy to have Cake and Jim, uh, uh, the two very cool ecosystem developer from Filecoin. So at this moment, I think I will share my screen. We are in the middle of the Filecoin grant and online hackathon. So the hackathon is co-hosted by Protocol Labs and DoraHacks, and the grant is happening on HackerLink. And for all the developers, if you are applying for the grant, you can go to hackerlink.io/en/grant and you can find Filecoin. And you can click apply grant and select Filecoin grant. You will be able to register your project on chain, and you'll be able to submit your project. So we have a live leaderboard here, and if you just go to the builder, you will be able to see a bunch of projects that are already submitted to the grant. I think we already have a bunch of them submitted. Some of them are pretty amazing, and we also invite these projects to demonstrate themselves, their projects on HackerLink and at the DoraHacks community live streaming session. Yeah, so today we have Cake and Jim. They are Filecoin ecosystem developers, and they are really cool developers. And they're highly recommended by Protocol Lab colleagues. And the topic of today is to introduce Filecoin and its key concepts. So there are a few subtopics we're going to cover today. The first one is the Filecoin ecosystem overview, and secondly, what is Estuary, and there's an overview, a whole bunch of examples that lead up to marketing Estuary, making Estuary, and lastly, a live demo of Estuary, and how can it be used today and in the future. So if you guys go to Estuary, its website is estuary.tech, you will be able to see what it's doing and the website itself. So without further ado, I will introduce Cake and Jim for this demonstration.
Hello, my name is Jim Pick. I think I'll go first because I'm going to do just a quick intro into core Filecoin concepts for developers. I'm going to share my screen here. Share screen. Okay. Can everybody see the screen here? I guess I can't really tell. I hope everybody can see the screen. Okay. So I'm going to start with the number one resource that anybody should go to familiarize themselves with Filecoin is, of course, the Filecoin website. And it's been localized into English and and there's a Chinese version as well, which I think will be of interest to the audience. I'm going to stick with English because that's what I understand. And I would like to draw your attention to, they have this nice animated globe, and this is Explore the Filecoin Vision. If you click down here, and this, I'm going to play some audio, but it has this really nice overview of the core idea behind Filecoin. And I'm going to pause it because I don't want to play it. It'll take a while to play. But I'm going to just try to enhance on this and talk about what somebody who is a software developer, application developer would like to know, just to be able to store files onto Filecoin and retrieve them back. So a bit about myself. My name is Jim Pick. I live in Vancouver, Canada. It's 7 o'clock in the evening here. I previously worked at Protocol Labs in various roles, including a short time as on the Filecoin team. And when I was there, I created the Lotus.js client libraries, which is a JavaScript libraries for talking to Filecoin API. I'm now self-employed, and I'm doing freelance work, but I'm still quite involved in the Filecoin open source community, and I've been asked to give this talk. As I said before, there's a lot of good introductory material and documentation available. And if you go to the website, there's the main Filecoin website, but the one you'll probably spend the most time on is the Filecoin documentation website. And this is a very, very good website. There's been a lot of effort been put into this, and you'll find a lot of documentation here. But a lot of the documentation here is for, people who are trying to run Filecoin, and there is developer documentation in here in the build section, and I encourage you to look at that. But you're going to find that even though there's a lot of documentation there, you're going to have to search and do a lot of reading and asking questions to actually find the information in a lot of cases, because it's a very new project, and it's moving very quickly. So I wanted to talk about Filecoin, and Filecoin is very hard to describe to people because it is sort of two things at once. It's a blockchain, but it's a blockchain very much like say like Bitcoin, which is the original blockchain, or Ethereum, and you can use it as a cryptocurrency. So you can transfer Filecoin from one person to another, just like you would transfer Bitcoin from one person to another, or Ethereum tokens from one person to another. But what makes Filecoin different is if you flip it over, it's also a cloud storage system. So in North America, everybody seems to use Amazon Web Services. I don't know in China, probably Alibaba, I don't know. And people use the cloud storage services to store lots and lots of files for use on the internet, and Filecoin can serve the same purpose. So there's two ways of thinking about Filecoin, which is like very, very different than a traditional blockchain. So a bit more about the blockchain aspect of Filecoin. So it's, like I said, it's a cryptocurrency. You can send Filecoin tokens from one account to another as a payment for something. It's a true layer one blockchain. So it's not built on top of another blockchain. Like Filecoin does not use Ethereum. It's sort of a competitor to Ethereum or Bitcoin. Filecoin is a permissionless blockchain. Anybody can just download the open source software and join up with it. And it is built around a set of proofs to ensure what they call it Byzantine fault tolerance. So when there's a bad actor or somebody's trying to attack the system, even though they're able to join the Filecoin network, if they try to attack the system, they get punished for it. And so Filecoin is designed to be very, very, very secure because it holds money. People would try to steal that. So everything you see in Filecoin, like if something is slow or it takes a while for something to happen, there's a reason for that. It's because of security. So also Filecoin compared to Bitcoin uses something called proof of work, which means uses more and more energy. It's like Bitcoin is using enough power comparable to some small countries right now. Filecoin, on the other hand, is built around a different set of proofs something called proof of space-time and proof of replication. And these proofs are built around file storage and having lots and lots of hard drives. So the top miners in Filecoin are the ones that have the most hard drives hooked up to the system. And they run these proofs and they have to continuously prove that they actually have these hard drives hooked up, they're storing data, and that's continually proved to the blockchain. And that's how miners make money in the Filecoin ecosystem. So that's the blockchain side of things. If you flip it over and you think of Filecoin as a storage market, it's like a storage system that you'd have with a cloud provider, but instead of having just one person you trust to store your files with, it's a marketplace. There's thousands of different miners out there competing for your storage deals. You can store lots and lots of data with just any one of those miners, or you can store your data spread out across a whole bunch of different miners. And that's really, I think, the exciting thing about it. Is like, it's a sort of a marketplace. The miners, they all set their own prices, and you can choose the miners based on the price or how reliable they are, reputation. So the core thing is you can store files on the Filecoin network, and you can retrieve the files from Filecoin. It's global. There's Filecoin miners all over the world. It's just huge right now. I think it's 5 exabytes of data being stored right now, and that's increasing every day. And that's, just huge amounts of data. You can take almost any data set you can think of, and there's enough hard drives hooked up to Filecoin to store that data. So it's just an ideal place for preserving humanity's most important data sets. It's quite exciting. So this presentation will mostly focus on the storage aspect of Filecoin, and we still have to talk about the blockchain basics, because all of your storage deals and things depend on being able to pay for the storage in Filecoin tokens, or Filecoin's concept of time, et cetera, et cetera. And it's good to understand how the proving system works. So I'm going to try to explain this. I haven't really rehearsed this a lot. So before I get into the details, I think as a developer, you have to sort of approach Filecoin a little bit carefully, because Filecoin, as for storing data, because it gives you the core primitives for storing data, but it's a very sort of raw form of storage. It doesn't have a lot of features like you would expect from a Amazon or Alibaba that you would expect. It's basically you take your files, you store them, and then after they're stored, you can get them back. It's sort of almost like sort of a cold storage type of a system. But this is going to change over time as well, because Filecoin is a fast-moving project. It was launched, the mainnet went live last year, and it was a big rush to get it all done. And the focus was on making the blockchain very, very secure and very, very performant and economical, so that the miners who are putting these hard drives online, they don't lose money, they make money. That's the part that received most attention. So it's been a really massive success, and it's just absolutely huge right now. But that's on the supply side, it's doing really, really well. On the demand side, nobody's written their applications to use Filecoin, so they're starting from zero. So there's been a lot of activity. Protocol Labs has sponsored projects like the slingshot competitions, where they incentivize people to try to store as much files on Filecoin as possible. There's things like Filecoin Plus, where if you can register your application, and there's these notaries that decide whether your application is a good application for Filecoin, they will give you something called a data cap, and that just lets you get very, very, very cheap storage, because the miners get a little bit of bonus when they store your data. So these are all activities to try to get that demand side going on and get a lot of people starting to use Filecoin and build applications around it. So, and the work that the Application Research Group is doing, which Kate, the other Jim, who's going to present next, is part of that. They are figuring out ways of using Filecoin, which you can copy and build applications using these best practices that they are discovering. It's very much research, and I'm excited to see what Jim's going to present. So the key takeaway is Filecoin is intended to be a strong foundation on top of which there's a whole ecosystem of additional protocols and systems and libraries and layers. They're all going to be built on top of it. So if a good understanding of the basics of the network, you'll be equipped to pick the tools, libraries, services to build your application. So I'm just going to see if I can sort of explain some of the core ideas behind how the blockchain works. So if I go to okay, I'll just skip those ones. Right now, so Filecoin is a spec. So here's the spec website, and this is pretty dry reading. It's a very long document, and nobody's really going to read this. But if you are going to write anybody can write a version of Filecoin themselves and use that. But you don't have to, because there's already open source implementations. Very reference implementation that pretty much everybody uses right now, because it was the one that was available at launch. It's called Lotus, and you can find them in the documentation page here. And that gives you your miner, it gives you a node, the ability to store files. And that's probably what everybody should really start with. But there's some new ones coming out. So there's one written in Rust that's starting to happen. It's not as feature complete as Lotus. There's a Venus, which is another one written in Go. It was originally based off of the original version of Filecoin. Lotus is actually the second version of Filecoin that was created. And so that one's got a lot of features specifically built for people who are interested in mining. And there's a C++ version coming out soon as well. So you have a lot of choices here. You have to do a lot of research. But for starters, all the documentation is really about this Lotus version. And they all match the spec. So once you have documentation, all across the globe, there's these thousands of participants in the network. A lot of them are what you call miners. The miners run a piece of software, and they hook all their hard on a computer, and they have lots and lots of hard drives hooked up to it. And so a miner can be just something you run on a single machine. It has to be a fairly fast machine with lots of storage and lots of memory in order to compute the proofs. But you can run it on a single machine. But a lot of the people that are doing Filecoin mining commercially, they might have 10,000 machines hooked up, but it only looks like a single miner. So that's really amazing to see that happen. But in terms of the blockchain, they're all a miner. And then there are also computers that run things called nodes. And a node, what a node does is it syncs the blockchain continually. So there's all this data being published onto the blockchain, the blocks, and they sync it continually, and they mix all the blocks together, and that generates the state. So if you look at, so like a blockchain explorer, you can sort of see this here. So these are, all these little colored blocks here are, they're called blocks. And these numbers here is the block height, and every, I think it goes, this is actually the top. So every 30 seconds since the beginning of the Filecoin, when the mainnet went live, a new, they call it a tip set, is published. So each one of these lines is a tip set. So one just got published there. So this tip set had 5 different blocks in it, and this tip set has 6 different blocks in it. And it's like clockwork. Every 30 seconds, you get a new block height. And each of all of these, so on a like Ethereum or Bitcoin, it's sort of the same thing, except they only have one block every, they call it an epoch. So, but in Filecoin, there are many, many blocks, but it's generally, you know, probably average, it looks like about 5 on average. And then what happens is inside each of these blocks, there's a bunch of transactions. And those transactions, if you add them all together, there's the state from one block height to the next block height. And the state has things like, here's all the accounts of people who have addresses, and all the addresses have a balance of how many tokens are associated with that address. And when you transfer money from one to another, it just creates messages. The messages go to a global peer-to-peer network called a message pool. It talks a protocol called Gossip Sub. Those go out to the miners. The miners are selected. So these miners here, they all got selected at random. And the ones that, it's almost like winning a lottery ticket. When they win the lottery ticket, they get the honor of collecting all these little messages and transactions, and they all split them between these ones, and they put them on the little blocks, and then they all get paid. So like they're getting, like here it says the Filecoin price is $122 US right now, and then each one of these blocks gets a block reward if you've sort of, as a miner, has won the ticket to win that. And their odds of winning the ticket is dependent on how much power they have. That's how many hard drives they have hooked up to their system. So the ones that have the biggest amount have a much better odds of getting the lottery ticket that lets them publish the block. So it's sort of complicated. It's a pretty crazy system. But what it does is it gives you this. It's basically a global database, and it's super, super secure, and all the storage and all the different miners is all tied into this one data structure, and also all the cryptocurrency things as well. So that might be a little bit long-winded of a thing. So okay, I'm going to just jump ahead and talk about storage deals. So there's a little image on the marketing website, or the animation, and you can see what you do when you want to store data is you find a list of miners. So you have to find this list of miners from somewhere, and I can show you some websites to do this, and then each of these miners publishes the price they want. And they also publish things like, I'm willing to handle files that are from this size to this size, because some miners want to only store really large files, some only want to store small files. And then you as a client, you pick the miners you want to do deals with based on the pricing and probably their reputation, because some of these miners might not be very reliable, and you pick the ones that are most reliable, that are the cheapest, and you can send out deal proposals. So this thing called a deal proposal that you would send to all of these, and you sign that. You use your signature out of your wallet, and you give it you sign this sort of a JSON object, and you send it off to the miner. And the miner, once they have this proposal, they can submit. And they also have to get your data. So you also have to send them your data. So you can send them their data over the internet using. There's a protocol built into Filecoin called GraphSync, which can efficiently transfer large graphs of IPLD data, which is a format that IPFS uses and Filecoin uses. That'll send the data to the miners, and if they have the data and they have your proposal, that's good. Like, you don't have to do anything else. They will take that data and they will store this data to the on their hard drives that are connected to their system, and then they will, over time, they will have to encode this in a specific way they call it sealing to sectors, and it's generally 32 gigabytes or 64 gigabytes on mainnet currently, using proofs. And then every day for the duration of the deal, they have to submit a proof to the blockchain in a message, and says they do some cryptography, and it's like, I have the files, I have the files, I have the files. If they ever, like, there's a fire, or they turn the hard drives blow up or something, and they lose the data, they will not be able to submit these proofs of the data to the blockchain. Now, what Filecoin does is it waits for these proofs, and then every day, when it receives the proofs from the miners that they're storing your data, they will take some money from your account and transfer it to the miner. So it's just sort of, the money just sort of trickles across. It's a pretty neat system, because like if they ever stop storing your data, you will find out automatic. You will automatically stop paying for it. So I think I have to watch the time. How am I doing for time here? It's
yeah, I think it's pretty flexible, and you can just do a thorough introduction. And yeah, supposedly we're running at 1 hour.
Okay. So I'm going to just try to wrap it up very quickly. So I think I prepared too much content to actually show. So there's storing the files, and then there's also retrieving the files. So retrieving the files, I'm just going to show you a block explorer first. So there's continually during the day, you can go to there's a number of different block explorers. You can see all the data that's being stored, like each deal is being made, and you can see the size, the verified deals. That this is a Filecoin Plus thing I talked about. You can see client, this is who's paying for the data, and these are the miner IDs. And you can see all day long there's different bits of files being stored. You can see when they get stored on the blockchain, but when people retrieve from there, it doesn't really touch the blockchain. When you retrieve data, you set up a thing called a payment channel, and you make a payment channel between yourself and the miner. And in Filecoin, the retrievals aren't free unless the miner sets the price to 0. But the miner will typically charge a little bit of money, because these files that can be really, really large, and it costs them a lot of money to send them over the internet. And it's basically off. It's considered called off-chain because once you have this payment channel set up, you can put your money into the payment channel, and then it's just between the protocol is just between you and the miner for retrieving. So you say, I want this data back, and you send the miner what they're called you cryptographically sign these little voucher files that get sent to the miner, and then as you send the miner, they send you some of the data back. So it's sort of a clever system in that because if it avoids sending messages to the blockchain, that's very good because the messages are actually quite expensive in Filecoin because there's a limited amount of messages that can be recorded in any 30 seconds. It's a few thousand messages. It's quite a lot, but if you have millions of people trying to download files, that would greatly overwhelm the system. So I'm sort of running out of time, so I think probably if you want to get started in storage things, I think you would probably just go to the docs on the Filecoin website, and there's a whole build section here. I could just talk for another hour about how to get started with getting set up, and a lot of it's also written up on the documentation site. It's as a client, as somebody who just wants to store data. Right now, it's still a pretty good idea to set up a Lotus node and sync the blockchain, and you need a pretty powerful computer to do this. So it's a bit, and maybe like a day of time to really sort of learn how to do it. So it's a big thing. I think Jim, who's going to present next, is going to present some alternatives to do this, which is going to make it easier for new developers to get involved. So I think I'll cut it off here and hand it over to Cake.
Cool. Wow, that was an awesome primer. Even for me, I feel like I learned a lot. There's so much happening in the Filecoin ecosystem. I'll share my screen now so you can see. I have a presentation as well. So my name is Cake. My name is also Jimmy as well, but you guys can call me Cake because Jim Pick's the real Jim. And I'm going to talk about why I think Filecoin is awesome and some of the examples that we've made that will be really good at a hackathon. Like if you're rolling a project right now, you just want to make something really quickly and put some data onto the Filecoin network, or just pin something to IPFS. I have plenty of examples. Also an example of miner index and other things that are cool. And then I want to show you some new development that we've been working really hard on at the ARG, which will help with retrieval deals and deal storage success rates. And so let's just get into it. So I think the gist of what everyone really wants as a developer for the Filecoin ecosystem is basically I want to store data on the Filecoin network. I want to find data that's on Filecoin, and I want to retrieve anything, anytime. I think these are the expectations that a lot of, depending on if you've worked with Amazon S3 or a Google Cloud Storage or anything like that, you just have this expectation. And there are other needs, but for the hackathon projects that you guys are doing, I think it's something that you kind of you want something that just plug and play. And so, we have a kind of broader model for all of the apps that I kind of made kind of a silly one, which is you have a ton of data and you want to make this data available for any BCI interface, so that maybe one day, when companies do have really clever models, you can use these models to do really interesting things, and they're not owned by a single company because the data is all available to everyone. So here's a quick little wake me up video production. Actually, I'll skip this because I'm not sure if I'll get through the time. So what I like to use is actually Textile. Textile is a company that produces buckets, ThreadDB, and PowerGate. I'm sure you've seen these before in the Filecoin ecosystem. If you haven't, I think I have a great example for you later that will help you get started with buckets. But it's one they provide these like tools that are really easy to kind of like deal with a lot of the overhead that Jim Pick mentioned, that make kind of, getting on board with a development environment that actually just works a little too hard. And I think they're really fun to play with, even if you don't stick with these tools and you end up becoming more of a bare metal Lotus developer. You can still get some like kind of like a good stepping stone, a good first step. And so I also wrote about this in a journal that talks about a lot of what I've done before. So if you are curious about my path as a Filecoin developer, I've written it out in detail, my perspective and everything. So I don't have to talk about it all here. And so one thing that's interesting is if you're not working directly with, if you're not working with a higher level tool and you're working with the Lotus protocol directly and you're doing something like data transfer, there are a lot of states that you have to capture, to actually build an app. And I think that's what makes, this low level primitives work a little bit difficult, because it's awesome that we do actually have all this state that we track, but it's difficult for developers just trying to get into it. And so, and even here, like if you look at a deal that comes back from the Filecoin network, you might have transfer status and you might have, typical information like bytes and like timestamps, but to infer state, like for example, on-chain state, sector, start, epoch, that value is actually, that also means that it's on-chain. But, as a first-time developer, that might not be something that you're fully aware of compared to when you've been using other things. And so at the application research group, with Chris Waring, myself, and Jeremy, we actually have produced a couple examples that I think will make this development a lot easier using Textile Stack, and also a lot of work that we do with Estuary, which I think will make things easier over time. So that's the link to it if you want to check out some of those things. And I'm going to give a quick demo. And so I'm just going to go to github.com, application research, the repo, and I'm going to go over to next bucket. And there's some light usage here. If you end up thinking this is cool, give it a star. But I have why do you want to use this? Put data on IPFS easily. Data gets stored and pinned to IPFS automatically. You can use any gateway to retrieve your CID. And we're adding MetaMask integration. And so you can try it online. Like it's actually already online here for you to try, but I'm going to actually run you through an experience of how to get it set up. So we have our, it's basically a clone, CDNX bucket, and then you have your M variable file that you need to manage the secrets for Textile Hub. And so right here, I'm running one. So I'll just go and do npm run dev. Cool, I think it's ready to go. So we'll do localhost 3001. And you can see that I have my interface. The code for this is actually pretty simple. We have our pages. We have APIs. So we have APIs for buckets, Filecoin tokens. It's all open source, so you can peer in, check it out. And we have some components that you can use, but don't feel like you have to. You can rewrite the whole thing. It's a nice thing about boilerplate. So we're going to generate a libp token, and that method lives here in token generate. As you can see, it's very simple, just a few lines of code. Some of it's obfuscated into some like modules that you can check out, and we're going to hit use. So it takes a while to create the bucket the very first time. And awkward silence, just for a little bit while things are going. I'm doing this all live, so I never know what will happen. It's part of the fun. Cool. So right away you have a bucket. If you click on this link, it's on IPFS. You have a Filecoin address, and so that's how quickly we can provide a Filecoin address for testing to people. Just like clone a repo, plug in a few keys, and boom, it works. Obviously, there's no Filecoin in there. And if I click on data, I can actually just go here, add a file. So I'm going to click on desktop, and I have this NFT that I worked on with someone named Ross. He's really cool. And now, just like that, famous last words. Some time passes and success. Cool. So now it's on IPFS. And that's how easy it is to set up a quick application that you can just put something on IPFS really fast. And now you have an app that you can, if you build DID, like centralized user management, you put MetaMask in there, you can support users. And so that's kind of a short example of what we want to provide to people to get started. So if you have any questions about that, please ping me. We have other great examples too, such as like the repo for file.app, which you can see over, I think the miner count that we use here is 2,000. We use 439 miners here that we filtered out, but you can check out all the stats of every single miner, and you can also make a storage deal using the same code that I showed you just previously, and it's all open source. So if you want to check out how any of this works and you want to use Textile Stack to build something quickly at a hackathon, highly recommend. Gets the job done quickly, and it's pretty simple. So I'm going to go back to my presentation and go into some of the specifics. So here, I want to show like how quickly the code that's required to actually get textile buckets to work is pretty simple. And the key challenge is knowing where to get the hub secrets. And so there are developer habits that we've kind of taken for granted as we've built apps, like managing secrets, generating keys, and basic JavaScript conventions. And so if you have questions around any of those things, feel free to ping me. You can find me on social media. I can help you get through any of them. I actually kind of missed that about real hackathons, because we used to be able to go and help people side by side, but right now it's kind of difficult given the current times. But it's really simple. With under 50 lines of code, you can basically set up the buckets, create a bucket, and then upload a file to it. And then it's as simple as like creating a simple interface to upload a file, and then something's on IPFS. And that will help you, I think, get beyond some of the trappings of like where to start, how to start, and then you can dig deeper into topics and figure out more of the mechanics around Filecoin. Other open source. So what you saw earlier was a miner profile page that the code's available as well if you want to just like take any CID off the IPFS pins and just make a deal for it on the Filecoin network. That's also available. And you can see kind of my own testing here. I've done, some deals succeed, some deals don't. Usually it's because we don't have enough Filecoin. So we've gotten the problem down to more of where it's having enough Filecoin to make deals. And I think that, has improved a lot over the last couple of months. So that's all interesting. And I hope that if you have any questions, you'll ask me and we can build apps together. If you have you don't have to be an expert. I don't mind any question at all, just anything that you need help with. The other thing that we're building that's really interesting is Estuary. So Estuary was born out of this need to, have a way, and you can check it out online, estuary.tech. We want to pin data to IPFS and store replicas on Filecoin. And sometimes you hear that the data is lost on IPFS. And so we create a mechanism where if that data is lost, we can make a retrieval for where it is on Filecoin and restore the pin. And ultimately doing the retrieval side of things for people. So, something that's a little bit more complicated, tougher to manage, developers don't necessarily want to work across the whole stack. It gets really complicated. So we thought that, okay, we'll just create a mechanism that, takes care of some of that for you and also open source that code. So if you want to provide, Estuary to your own users, like you want to run your own Estuary node, or you want to fork and build your own platform as a service, you could do that. And so there's a lot of APIs that are in here actually. So this code's currently in the code base, and we need to write documentation for it. But you can query miners, you can check the stats, the deals, the failures. You can get a list of all the files that have been uploaded, and also the bandwidth usage, which is something that's really important for any type of storage tool. And we also want to make it really, really simple to create a front-end component, and with a few lines of code, under 50 lines of code, you can basically upload any file you want and deals will start to happen. And so I'll break into another demo. Here, I'll actually do it off production. So I think everything on production is pretty much ready. So down here, you can see we have all the miners that we add to Estuary. So anyone who's running their own Estuary node can basically curate the list of miners that they want to work with. And so we picked up to, around 39 miners, and we suspended a few. And we want to make this public because we don't want to do anything in the shadows. So if we suspend something or we don't work with a specific miner, we want you to know so we can work together to get you back into our rotation. For a lot of miners that are here, let's see if I can find one of my favorites. We also do public miner pages. So if you view this in incognito, you can also see that if you're logged out, you can see this page. And we're going to do a lot more fun stuff here where you can have a miner page. You can talk about where you are in the world and talk about, hey, I am compliant with these rules and I only want this type of data. And it's something that we don't have right now, but it's really fun to hack on and start exploring. And so you can see that with this miner, we have a lot of successful deals. We have some deals that have failed. And we have error logs that when we're debugging with this miner, we can actually work together and figure out what's going on. Is it us? Is it you? And I think this feedback looks really good for people working such a large ecosystem, because it's really hard sometimes when you're leaving feedback and no one responds for a while. And it's nice to have this all in a public place where we can all look at it together and look at the same thing. So here, I'm in Estuary, and if you want later on, I can give you access to a developer API key. So you can, try it out and try uploading data to the network. And so here you can see that I've put a lot of data on, and let's see if this works. So this is a video of a tree. And so it's pretty simple. We just find ways we pin any files that we upload to our Estuary node. And I'll show you here. I'm just gonna drag and drop a file. And since this code is open source, the point of this is basically you can just take it and provide it for your users too if you want to run your own Estuary node. And here we have, some UI for the deal is verified, so it doesn't cost anything. 71 megabytes will be replicated across 6 miners, which I'll talk about more later. And it'll be stored for 365 days. And so one of the concepts that was complicated for developers working with Filecoin was explaining Filecoin epochs, and they're not the same as all the epochs in the world. So it's nice to kind of do some education here as well. We can just make a storage deal. This should go pretty quickly. All those famous last words didn't go very fast. Sorry about that. Cool. And then we do some processing. And right away, you can upload your files straight to the through so that any IPFS gateway can access it. And let's go here and see our Filecoin storage miner status. So it's still processing right here, but earlier I did a quick test, and you can see here that all the transfers have finished for that file. And if I click here, I can see more details about the miner. What's really nice is that I know that, oh, nice. So transfer is finished for another 4 miners. These miners are awesome. They're always reliable. And I know that now my data is pinned to the Estuary node, so I can retrieve it whenever I like. You can see right here, I can just click here and get it back, and it's going to download, and that's awesome. But now I know that if that pin is lost, we will make a retrieval deal against the Filecoin network, and we can restore that pin. So that's really cool, and that's something that will help a lot with explaining how Filecoin works, just by being able to witness and experience that. And in Estuary, there are a couple other things that are neat. There's analytics that are coming soon. We have data on our stats. I did a bad job. I haven't implemented everything that we have. There's going to be a lot more. We have a balance. So you can see that we have some Filecoin. We have this much of our verified data cap left, and we can move Filecoin into our escrow so that it will be used in the automation process, which is really great for, if you're providing your own Estuary node for users, you can, kind of first get like meter your users and see like how much core they actually need, and then you can plan accordingly. We have content offloading, so if we need to manually take anything off the Estuary node, we can just click offload, and yep, I want to offload it, and it's gone. So we can do this, and if someone wants to retrieve it again, they can go and it'll make a retrieval against the Filecoin network and bring it back. And so that's kind of cool. And I have an invite screen here that I'm not supposed to show. If you catch one really fast, you can basically try this out today. So yeah, it's pretty much Estuary, and the code, as mentioned before, is available here. And so here's the Estuary node, and you can see that we're, everything that we have from replication to retrieval, you can check out the source code here, and you can see how we're building it. And we'll provide documentation for how to run your own, so that if there's anything that you want to change or do differently, you totally can. We just basically want to show people how you can put all these technologies together. And then Estuary WW, you can just run one of these yourself if you like, and also build your own front end as well. And we'll have documentation for that too. And so you can see here in handlers.go, the API we're building is pretty simple. We're open to a lot of suggestions. We're hoping to get a lot of feedback as well. So as you guys are hacking around or taking a peek at our stuff, please let me know what you think. So yeah, I think I went through quickly because I wanted to save some time. Hopefully, Jim, if there's something else that you might want to cover about this, or maybe you have any questions. I see some looking at the chat right now.
Yeah, so I think you guys are definitely charming, and we have more than 1,000 people watching on Bilibili right now. So many of this audience is Chinese, and yeah. So there's someone asking that, like, when you are demonstrating the file retrieval, it looks like slow. So what is the reason for that, and what is the speed limit of Filecoin or Estuary file retrieval?
It is slow because I have slow internet right now, and that might not be a good excuse. But data transfer is actually a really hard problem. We're even into like the current Web 2 internet with co-location centers and gateways and like US East versus US West. There's always delays. So I think I'm blaming my internet. When I'm at a person's home who has way faster internet, I find it to be really quick. If I'm in a corporate setting, I'm real quick. So yes, it depends on your geographic location and your access to high-speed internet. My upload speed is really terrible where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I'd like to add, for the slowness that you see in the typical just raw retrieval from Filecoin, just at the lowest level, most of the time is spent, if you've never downloaded from a particular miner before, it first has to set up a thing called a payment channel, which requires a few on-chain transactions, and it's more than one thing that has to happen. And because there's a 30-second cycle time between epochs, and it takes there's a couple of minutes of overhead if you've never dealt with the miner before. And part of it's like sort of like putting some funds in escrow in this payment channel so you can transfer the data. But the core idea is, like, if you put enough funds into that channel, the next time you do a download, it'll be instant because you don't have to go to the chain at all.
Exactly.
So there's all this sort of complicated things going on. For example, a system like Estuary could sort of stand in the middle and sort of proxy all these payment channels and do some sort of neat hacks, and it could all be really, really quick to download off of Filecoin. But something like Estuary is already keeping a local copy of it in IPFS, keeping that live so it's hot. So this is really only for rehydrating, like getting the cold copy off of Filecoin and bringing it back up into IPFS. And that's always going to be a little bit slow. So, but it could be that initial dance it has to do with on-chain transactions to get the payment channel set up could be optimized. So.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the answer, guys. So I think we have 3 more minutes. So if anybody has any question related to Filecoin or Estuary, please just go to Twitter and other social media and contact either Cake or Jim and ask them about the questions. Yeah, so just I think Cake talked about the in-person hackathon. We actually have an in-person hackathon tomorrow in Austin. So it actually starts from Saturday and ends on Sunday. And other amazing people are coming, and I think we have a 100 people event, and we offer all the foods. It's probably the first ever hackathon, like the in-person hackathon after the pandemic in the United States, and we're super excited about that. And the Filecoin is one of the tracks, and I think there are several teams building on Filecoin coming, and one of the teams is called EastSign. It's a decentralized DocuSign application, and they have team in both China and the US, and the US team is flying to Austin and attend this hackathon. So within 3 days, we'll upload this video to YouTube and Bilibili, and everybody can get access to this video. So before we end, I think one more question for because there are other teams coming to the Filecoin hackathon, and we're super happy to have all of them, all the developers coming. But also there are other individual developers joining the hackathon, and we have a teaming up group, and people can team up. Just in case, does Estuary offer any ideas or like ideas or do I have any issues, bounties that are currently available so that we can forward this information to our hackathon audience, and maybe some of them will be very interested in building using Estuary. I think it's a super cool middleware, and it's going to be very useful to many developers. They do not need to get access to directly call the low-level functions from Filecoin, but also they can use your infrastructure. So just I want to ask this question before we end.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Jennifer and why, and we'll come up with some stuff maybe. Right now, a lot of the Estuary work is pretty straightforward. We're just making sure that all of the experience for it and the APIs are available. But I'm definitely looking forward to having people test out our documentation once we have it available, so that people can try running it, and we'll definitely follow up and come up with some stuff.
Great. All right. Thank you, guys, and we're super happy to have you to present. So in China, it's pretty early. It's in the morning. We have more than 1,000 people watching, so it's definitely amazing. So we'll have the video ready, and hopefully we can invite you back to the DoraHacks community and talk about more about the progresses and. We will also invite other teams from the hackathon. I think currently we have more than 10 teams submitted their projects, and other people are teaming up and building on Filecoin. So we'll invite teams to do live streaming demo as well. And we can connect you guys if anything is related. So for developers, we join the hackathon and follow the DoraHacks YouTube and Bilibili and join the hackathon group. Yeah, so I think that's for today. Thank you guys for coming. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Kate.